Good morning. Thank you for attending our session today. This is something that Ebony and I developed this semester in response to the COVID crisis. I am Suzanne Sutton, an assistant professor at the College of Nursing, and I'm with Ebony Harris, who's an associate professor also at the College of Nursing. We are both clinical track faculty, which means our focus is on teaching rather than research or scholarship.
Susan and I have worked off and on together for about 10 years. We first started teaching together at Mary Black School of Nursing at USC Upstate in a course that's very similar to the one we're going to talk about today. Our students are in their second semester of upper division. That means they are juniors and only taking nursing classes. In this semester, students take our class, Medical Surgical Care of Adults, OB, PEDS, and Evidence-Based Practice. Med-Surg, OB, and PEDS are clinical courses, meaning students spend 2 days a week in class and 1 day a week in clinical for each course.
Now, our class, Med-Surg Care of Adult Patients, is one didactic section that is further divided, one didactic section of 130 students that is further divided into 14 clinical sections of 7 to 8 students each. The largest classroom at the College of Nursing can fit up to 136 students, but with COVID mitigation strategies, that number has been cut in half. In an effort to meet the student needs, both safety and learning, College of Nursing class sessions are offered synchronously, face-to-face and virtually using Zoom or web conferencing platforms.
The current model for our nursing education experiences, both didactic and clinical, may not meet the students' learning needs. There's an inability to control available learning experiences for each student, and there's a limited availability of clinical sites, and the patients that are available may avert intentionality of learning. We can require a certain number of clinical hours. For example, there's 96 hours for this course, but there is no assurance that all students have experiences that link back to the theoretical concepts.
For example, we most recently covered patient problems associated with cardiovascular diseases, such as perfusion and oxygenation. While we do have some students who have clinical in areas where they care for cardiac patients, some students do not. Basically, student exposure to specific disease processes or problems is limited by the patients on their assigned clinical unit. We like the preview, view, review, synthesize model of learning, and we encourage our students to use it as they prepare for in-class activities. The preview session, students should check out the learning objectives and upcoming activities and practice some retrieval of knowledge. This helps them start to integrate information from prerequisite and concurrent courses.
During the view process, students view lectures and complete online learning modules and readings. They start their deep learning here. And in reviewing, students go over the concepts immediately after completing their lecture or assignments, and then one to 2 days after the view, and then about 1 week after that.
And finally, students synthesize using problem-based learning in small groups, which is the focus of our session today.
We chose to flip the classroom and divide our students into 2 groups, our Monday and Friday groups. Class activities are exactly the same on Monday and Friday, but students must attend class on their assigned day. Lectures are posted and available at least 1 week before the unit starts. Students are supposed to view pertinent lectures and complete the online learning activities prior to coming to class.
The problem-based learning activities for each unit take place during 2 class periods or over 2 weeks. Each class period begins with a 5-question multiple-choice quiz via ExamSoft. This encourages students to complete the pre-class activities or the preview, view, and review components of the learning strategy.
After the quiz, we check in with the students, make announcements, and then give a short description of the patients each group will be working with for the next 2 weeks. For the majority of the class period, students work in their small groups using Zoom breakout rooms and Padlet. Then, during the last 10 minutes of class, the groups complete an NCLEX-style challenge on Socrates.
In week 2, the groups finalize their care plans, again using the Zoom breakout rooms and Padlet. At the end of the second session, groups present their care plans via Zoom and on their Padlet.
Now, what we're saying is, don't reinvent the wheel. We didn't create anything new. For example, one of our course learning objectives is utilizing the nursing process to reflect understanding of the pathophysiology, pharmacology, medical treatments and nursing management, and the patient teaching related to chronic medical conditions. Again, our most recent classes have focused on patient problems resulting from chronic cardiovascular disease. So our patient scenarios come from our experiences as nurses, case study books, or other resources. We don't make them up from scratch. As part of each week's clinical experience, which is held outside of class time, students create a care plan based on the patient they care for that week. We took this assignment and modified it for small group active learning.
We also encourage you to use what you know. The College of Nursing uses Zoom as our teleconference platform. We started using it at the end of the last spring semester when campus closed. We use it for virtual clinical experiences and debriefing, synchronous class sessions, and for proctoring exams. We find it fits our needs the best as we can visualize large groups of students, and the sessions are easy to record, export as MP4s, and then share via Blackboard. We did try using Blackboard Collaborate in Teams this semester, but student feedback indicates they want to use one platform rather than switching around. We also use Padlet as an interactive document sharing and presentation platform. I was introduced to Padlet several years ago at a teaching professors conference and use it frequently. It's like a shareable digital bulletin board and has some features Google Docs does not. If you were at the plenary session today, then we use it there. But if you weren't, you're going to get to use it today in our activity.
As mentioned, our real-life scenarios are case studies. We usually start with something from our own nursing experience, a case study book, or from a simulation. Then we edit it to fit the level of learning and experience of our students, as well as focus on specific concepts. Our small groups are based on clinical groups, which are usually 7 to 8 students each. So we further divide them into subgroups of 3 to 4. This allows each student to have more of a voice. Each subgroup is assigned a specific portion of the problem to solve on day 1, and on day 2, the larger group of 7 to 8 comes together to integrate their solutions and prioritize interventions. The clinical groups then present their work to the class, and we will hold a discussion as a large class of a group to determine how the problems and concepts link.
We hope that you were able to get some idea of how you can use virtual platforms, conferencing platforms with a shareable digital platform as well. And we did discuss with some groups that they were like, well, we don't know that we would necessarily be able to use that. You could also use it for things like sharing videos to stimulate discussions. They could have discussions in their small groups that way. We sometimes use virtual simulations that are on a platform that goes with our books, and students and faculty can get together on and do that as a shared virtual platform plus an shared activity. Mm-hmm. So I want to share the Padlet that you guys did. Some people are still working on it, but are still adding to it. But I wanted to share it and show that you guys did add to it, and it's very easy to use. The Padlet's very intuitive, and it's a free platform. You can have. I have a Pro because I use a lot of them outside of school as well. It is a little glitchy if multiple people are adding to the same sticky. You can add to the same Padlet, but if you're all on the same sticky working on different sections, then it gets it can get a little wonky. Mm-hmm. So, but students, like I said, the students really like it. I think that it probably meshes better with Zoom. But my understanding is that Google Docs meshes better with Blackboard Collaborate. So those are all considerations when you're designing your virtual and face-to-face activities.
Right.
So now I'm not going to switch back to the next slide. I want to leave this up because we're going to share some of our students' tablets with you, but Ebony's going to talk about how we evaluate the process.
Sure. So I'll let you pull that up and I'll go ahead and talk about that. So we've been evaluating our students' success or suggestions with these activities using REDCap surveys. And so we use these to understand how students are doing, how they're feeling about the activity and their learning. We use their survey comments to help modify our activities a little as well. And also give us an idea of what they feel they are learning through the activity. In addition, we are using peer evaluations, not as a formative grade, but as a means to keep up with the student engagement while they are in the activity. So the peer evaluations have given us some useful feedback as far as, especially in the virtual environment, and since we have students in combined settings, either in person or virtually, sometimes we cannot see who may not be adding to the discussion. And so using these peer evaluations has been helpful to kind of see if everybody from in the group is having an opportunity to contribute, or if somebody feels like they don't have a voice, or if they feel like somebody is not speaking up. And so generally we have very good input from students across the board based on what the surveys are telling us. And occasionally we have one or two students who are not contributing, and then we can kind of approach that from a classroom activities participation standpoint.
Right. So on the surveys, the student, this was our first activity. I had a question, how many students do we have in class? We have about 130 students, and we split that in half. So it's about 65 students, and we divide them up into groups of 14 for the first day, 14 groups for the first day, and 7 groups for the second day. All right, so this was the first one that we did, and this was a case study, obviously, on chronic venous insufficiency. And we identified perfusion, oxygenation, and tissue integrity, those concepts across the top, and then the students added the information to it based on what we do for concept mapping. The feedback we got from that was we would rather it look more like what our concept maps look like that we do for clinical. And this is what that looks like. And you can see the arrows that go from the different colored sticky notes. That's how the ideas or the concepts link to each other. And this is much more in line with what they actually turn in for clinical. So it really supports their clinical learning as well as focusing on concepts that we're teaching in didactic. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoints and share this and go back. And just again to reiterate, we do 2 REDCap surveys that Ebony described. One for effectiveness of activities and student attitudes, and one for peer evaluation. They complete those at the end of each session.